And in this particular lecture, I'm going to cover a number of different things, and a lot of this to some people may seem like way out initially, you know, which it seemed to me, but I tried to gather as much facts as possible outside of the Moors to prove what we're saying. You know, a lot of times people say, well, y'all Moors saying this, but show me something else that's saying what y'all saying, that proves what y'all saying. So I tried to gather as much as possible, and I have a lot of information here to share. I tried to organize as best as possible because a lot of information, and I just tried to put it in the best way so that you could be able to grasp it. I'm going to start off speaking about a man by the name of Horace Greeley. And he was part of a worldwide conspiracy to conceal the information that I'm about to speak on today. And there's a definite reason why this information was concealed. Horace Greeley was the founder and editor of a paper called the New York Tribune, which was located in New York City. This newspaper was a national newspaper as well as international, and it had a profound effect on the consciousness of European people. At the time when this was put together, you know, sometimes we think that Europeans, that, you know, they've been a world power, you know, going way back to so-called Greeks and Romans time, all that's fictional. All that's fictional. They just got themselves together as recently as 1854 to 1865. This is when they finally got themselves together to govern the planet on a global level, as recent as that date. And this is around the time of the Civil War. And at the end of the Civil War, they was finally able to put certain things together to bring themselves together. At the time, during Horace Greeley's time, they was in a similar condition that we are in now, in the sense that you had many different white organizations at that time. They were all striving for the uplifting of their people, but they had many different ideologies, many different groups of themselves, all striving and vying with each other, sometimes bitter conflict with each other, in order to achieve that goal, which is the upliftment of their people. The key role that Horace Greeley played was that his paper, his organ, the New York Tribune, was able to gather up all those people and give them a sense of a unified context or paradigm or direction that they was all able to unify themselves behind, regardless to their different ideological differences and so on and so forth. And this is what we're hoping that the Moorish paradigm or the Moorish Renaissance that's taking place now will be able to do. That it will serve as a paradigm that will be able to unify our people in regards to the different ideologies. You know, coming out from New York City, you know, and I sell books in Harlem on 125th Street, as well as in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. And being in those two places, I've come in contact with every aspect of the so-called black movement or national or whatever you want to call it. I've come in contact with every aspect of it. Hebrew Israelites, every sect and division of Islam you could think of, black nationalists, all different types of groups, you know. And it seems like this may be able to unify us behind a certain paradigm. A paradigm is a certain perspective or outlook on the world. And this is what we're about to get into. We're about to have what's known as the paradigm shift. We're about to come into a new paradigm, a paradigm that will allow us to rise our people up and take our rightful place in history. Horace Greeley, prior to Horace Greeley's time, the European, or what we call the white man, whatever, he was known as the red man. And they called themselves red men. As a matter of fact, Horace Greeley was a member of a political party known as the Red Men's Whigs Party, which eventually he promoted to be changed to the Republican Party. The present-day Republican Party originally was called the Red Men's Whig Party. Horace Greeley, as well as Abraham Lincoln, were members of the Red Men's Whig Party. He suggested to them that they change their names to the Republican Party, and as opposed to call themselves red men, call themselves white men. And this was to set up this whole dynamic of white being pure and good and white being bad and inferior, this whole white supremacist mentality or paradigm that was being perfected at this time. Now, just to give you an idea of the power and of the influence of Horace Greeley, this was taken from a book called Horace Greeley in the New York Tribune during the Civil War. And it says in the introduction, it says, all contemporaries, friends, and foes alike testified that the Tribune exerted the greatest influence upon public opinion of any journal in the country during the period under discussion, which was the Civil War period. It goes on to say that The paper furnished the basis of a power national in scope and at times enabled the editor to mold public sentiment more effectively than even the president. Horace Greeley in that paper, the New York Tribune, actually had more influence over the mindset of European people on an international scale than even the President of the United States. Karl Marx was just the London correspondent of the New York Tribune. This was an international thing that took place here. All right? It also says that it would have been difficult to convince the great mass of rural subscribers from western New York to Iowa that the old white-coated philosopher, Horace Greeley, did not pen every line in their political Bible. Herein lies the crux of the Tribune power and influence. Horace Greeley was more than the editor of a great newspaper. He had acquired an enviable reputation as an expounder of political views and had actively sponsored the organization of the Republican Party on a national scale. So Horace Greeley had a great deal of influence. And he was like more or less, let's say, the point man that more or less gathered around him all these different people, covering all different various disciplines, everything from medicine to science to history. Just to give you an example, there's an article I have here called Archaeological Cover-Ups. This is an article that was taken from a magazine called Nexus Magazine. And this is a very good magazine. If you have a chance, get a hold of it. I believe Brother Emiola from the Black Mind Builders sells this particular magazine. And this particular article, Archaeological Cover-Ups, was dealing with the Smithsonian Institute, which was founded a little bit prior or during Horace Greeley times around in 1829. And it starts off, it says, most of us are familiar with the last scene in the popular Indiana Jones archaeological adventure film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, in which an important historical artifact, the Ark of the Covenant from the temple in Jerusalem, is locked in a crate and put in a giant warehouse, never to be seen again. I'm sure you all remember that part at the end where they shipped it in. They had all these different boxes marked top secret. It goes on to say, the Smithsonian Institute is an independent federal agency. Sounds familiar? IRS, Federal Reserve, so on. An independent federal agency has been actively suppressing some of the most interesting and important archaeological discoveries made in America. Now, what they were covering up was our history in this hemisphere. At this time, this is the time when they concocted this myth that we were all brought over here on slave ships from Africa to be their slaves. This is one of the biggest lies they ever put together. You're going to see the massive proportions of the lie that they have put forward. Yeah, there were some that were brought here from Africa. But by far, the majority of us were already here. We had a civilization that went from Alaska all the way down to Chile, which they refer to as the ancient mound builders, the one who built the civilizations and built the mounds and pyramids all up and down this hemisphere. And you're going to see further what is the significance and the major role that we played as civilization here in this hemisphere. And the Smithsonian Institute was key in covering up these facts. And then they also mention it here about the Vatican and how they have an underground library in the Vatican. The walls 5 feet thick and 24-hour security. What they hiding down there. And he mentions how they have things down there that will conflict with the church's credibility or perhaps cast the official text in doubt. So they keep these things hidden. And it says, and it goes on to say, it says, when Thomas, the guy's name is Thomas, he was the director of the Eastern Mound Division of the Smithsonian Institute's Bureau of Ethnology. It says, when Thomas came to the Bureau of Ethnology, he was a pronounced believer in the existence of a race of mound builders distinct from the American Indians, the people who they're saying American with the long stringy hair, so on and so forth. He believed that there was a race of mound builders distinct from the American Indians. However, John Wesley Powell, the director of the Bureau of Ethnology, a very sympathetic man toward the American Indians, had lived with some of these ones who they call Indians, and he felt sorry for them. He felt that they say he felt sorry for them, and they were treated unfairly, and that they should get the credit for this. Now remember, now they were in the process of wiping these people out. So it's easy to give credit to a people that you know you're about to wipe out anyway. It goes on and says the Smithsonian began to promote the idea that Native Americans at that time being exterminated in the Indian Wars were descended from advanced civilizations and were worthy of respect and protection. They also began a program of suppressing any archaeological evidence that led credence to the school of thought known as diffusionism, a school which believes that throughout history there has been widespread dispersion of culture and civilization via contact by ship and major trade routes. Keep that in mind, because remember, Moor means navigator. We were a maritime nation all over the planet. And keep that in mind, because we're going to get deeper into that. This says the school of thought known as diffusionism believes that throughout history there was a widespread dispersion of culture and civilization via contact by ship and major trade routes. It goes on and says, but the Smithsonian opted for the opposite school, known as isolationism. Isolationism holds that most civilizations are isolated from each other and that there has been very little contact between them, especially those that are separated by bodies of water. And this intellectual war that started in 1880s, right around Horace Greeley time. Now, this school of thought, isolationism, gives credence to their whole philosophy of us being so-called third world peoples and them being so-called first world peoples. They're saying this is the first time the world has been unified as what's known as the global village, or unified in economy and trade and so on and so forth. Wrong. There's been two civilizations prior to that in which it was unified by the Moors. First the ancient Moabites or Moabites, and then the Moors. It goes on to say, when the contents of many ancient mounds and pyramids of the Midwest were examined, it was shown that the history of the Mississippi River valleys was that of an ancient and sophisticated culture that had been in contact with Europe and other areas. Not only that, the contents of many mounds revealed burials of huge men, sometimes 7 or 8 feet tall, in full armor with swords and sometimes huge treasures. All this was being found by the Smithsonian. This gets back into the Bible where they talk about these different giants and Nephilim and so on and so forth. And it goes on and says, for instance, when Spiro Mine in Oklahoma was excavated in the 1930s, a tall man in full armor was discovered along with a pot of thousands of pearls and other artifacts, the largest such treasure so far documented. We have many more treasures here. The elders taught us that the Moors did more building underground than we did above ground here. And you see what we did build above ground, or what's left, what the Dominicans and Franciscan priests did not destroy and vandalize and loot and burn and pillage. And underground, they are aware of the vast underground tunnel networks that we have built underneath this country, where you was able to travel from New York City to California underground without having to come above ground once. And their military has taken over some of these underground facilities, but they could go over so far deep. And they know through different infrared and satellite pictures and so on and so forth, they know that there's other things deeper down that they can't get to. And when the conquistadors came over, they found whole villages and cities empty with people. They didn't know where they went. Oh yeah. Continuing on, it says, he was told by former employees that the Smithsonian, that an employee was dismissed for defending the view of diffusionism. And it said the Smithsonian at one time had actually taken a barge full of unusual artifacts out into the Atlantic Ocean and dumped it into the ocean. This is what they was doing with some of the things that they found. And it mentions here about stone coffins that was discovered in 1892 in Alabama, which were then sent to the Smithsonian Institute and then lost, according to the newsletter. And then going further down, it says, the head curator says, we have not been able to find the specimens in our collections, though records show that they were received. And it says, the Alaskan mound, they found a mound up in Alaska, and it says the Alaskan mound was in fact a graveyard of gigantic human remains consisting of crania and long leg bones. The crania measured from 22 to 24 inches from base to crown. Since an adult normally measures about 8 inches from back to front, such a large cranium would imply immense size for a normally proportioned human. In fact, the habit of flattening the skull of an infant and forcing it to grow in an elongated shape was a practice used by ancient Peruvians, Mayans, flatheads, Egyptians. You see some of the Egyptian pictures where they have the long hair, even in the South. You know, I heard stories where they used to actually shape the baby's head with their hands. You know, all this is directly related to us. Also, it says that they found statues ranging from less than 1 inch to 6 feet. Now, check this out. Depicting reptiles or dinosaurs, some of them in active association with humans, showing us contemporary with dinosaurs in this hemisphere. And we want to know who was the first people, who's the true Native Americans. There's nobody here standing on this, in this part of this hemisphere that could trace their roots back here further than us. Contemporary with dinosaurs. It goes on to say they also found portrayals of Bigfoot and aquatic monster-like creatures, weird human-animal mixtures. This gets into another lesson that's part of the course where we get into Yakub and how we kind of different types of experimentation in the Pyramid University of Yucatan, Mexico, where they have found all kinds of remnants and artifacts showing all kinds of crosses. We think genetic engineering and gene splicing, in vitro fertilization, we think these are new things. Our ancestors was mastering these things long time ago in the Pyramid University. This is how we made what we call the white race. By our scientists. Ain't no natural selection or none of that made no white race because they was up in the North Pole. What about the Eskimos? Continuing on, right? It's a lot of information. We're going to try and cover as much of this as possible. Now check this out. It says, historian and linguist Carl Hart, editor of World Explorer, then obtained a hiker's map of the Grand Canyon from a bookstore in Chicago. Poring over the map, we were amazed to see that much of the area on the north side of the canyon has Egyptian names. The area around 94 Mile Creek and Trinity Creek had areas or with names like Tower of Set, Tower of Ra, Horus Temple, Osiris Temple, Isis Temple. In the Haunted Canyon area were such names as Cheops Pyramid, the Buddha Cloister, Buddha Temple, Manu Temple, and Shiva Temple. All this was found in the Grand Canyon, and they have closed those sections off because they said it's too dangerous. All this is sitting right there to this day. And this is another article from the same magazine that deals with exploration. This is from a front page from the Phoenix Gazette from the 5th of April, 1909. And the title says, Explorations in Grand Canyon, Mysteries of Immense Rich Cavern Being Brought to Light. And it talks about how, it says, Mr. Kincaid found like a cavern, like a crypt, with human heads, solid rock carved by human hands, and tablets and all kinds of things he found in there. And he had to go nearly a mile underground, about 1,480 feet below the surface. The long main passage has been delved into to find another mammoth chamber from which radiate scores of passageways like spokes on a wheel. Up in New York, where you got these different things, you got all kinds of old names like Day Street, D-E-Y, Moore Street, all in the same area, right by Wall Street. Right in the Wall Street area where they found the ancestral burial grounds, you got a Moore Street and a Day Street, D-E-Y. And the elders told us there were 5 groups of Moors here. The Bays, the Days, the Owls, the Eels, and the Alis. And that gets into the 5 civilized tribes, as well as the 5 pairs of sons of Poseidon who governed Atlantis. And we're going to get into that connection also with Atlantis. There was an Indian legend dealing with the Hopi Indians. The original Hopis were our ancestors as well. And it says that in connection with the story, it is notable that among the Hopi Indians, the tradition is told that their ancestors once lived in the underworld in the Grand Canyon. A dissension arose between the good and the bad, the people of the one heart and the people of the 2 hearts. It sound like the Boulay. They have 2 hearts. Or it sound like some of those Uncle Tom Negroes who have 2 hearts. You know what I'm saying? They want to be down with the white man, but they want to be down with us. You know, 2 hearts. And it says that Macheto was their chief, counseled the good ones with the 1 heart to leave the underworld, the underground city, but there was no way out. The chief then caused a tree to grow up and pierce the roof of the underworld, and the people of 1 heart climbed out. They tarried by the Red River, which is in Colorado, and grew grain and corn. They sent out a message to the temple of the sun asking the blessings of peace, goodwill, and rain for the people of 1 heart. The messenger never returned. But today at the Hopi villages at sundown can be seen the old men of the tribe on the housetops gazing towards the sun, looking for the messenger. When he returns their lands and ancient dwelling places will be restored to them. We are those messengers with the feds. We the ones they're looking for. And all those lands will be returned to us. All right? Now, in connection, and I found a book. Now, I kept telling myself, this whole thing, now this is a whole nother deep area that has to be further researched and looked into. Something bothered me about this whole thing about Greeks and Romans and these Europeans going way back to 500 BC. I said, something don't sound right here. I had a theory. Something told me that somewhere around Horace Greeley's time is that they they talk about this Renaissance and all this. Renaissance, the rebirth of classical culture, Greek and Roman culture, whatever. That wasn't no rebirth of no Greek. That was the birth of it for them. They concocted this thing. At that time, students of the Moors, they were students of the Moors. And they were going around, their artists were going around making sculptures and stuff, saying that these were the ancient Greeks. A lot of these sculptures had heads missing that they replaced. Now I said, there gotta be a book, there gotta be something that will give me some hints. Remember now, because all this information at Horace Greeley's time was kept out of the institutions of higher learning. But you will find it scattered here and there. You will find a sentence here, a paragraph here, a page here. It's scattered. You got to be almost like a detective, but you got to have the context. You got to have the paradigm first to know what you're even looking at. Once you get this particular context or this particular paradigm, a lot of things that you already know will begin to make a lot more sense in this particular context. And I said, there gotta be a book where I can find that I can uncover, because something just don't sound right. Then I came across something where Erasmus from the so-called Renaissance period was writing letters to other students under the pen name of Cicero. I said, hold up. And then you hear about, for instance, Francis Bacon was one who they called Shakespeare. And he had a literary group, or a secret society, a secret literary group, who were putting out all kinds of works on Moorish science under the pen name of Shakespeare. So I said, what's going on here? Something don't seem right. You got to get the feel for this thing. Now, one day, this is where the ancestors come in, because once you tune in with the ancestors, they will guide you to certain things. The ancestors will constantly, that whole summer, they were guiding me to all kinds of books, and at that time I was teaching the course, and I have some of the packets here. I have about 10 of them, 5 of them already sold. And I was teaching the course at that time, and I was constantly, each week, they were just sending me, and I would just walk to a shelf, bam, pick up a book, and boom, the Jews would be in there. And I wasn't even using the catalog at a certain point. I was just walking in and just pulling stuff out. And I would get to sections, like I would be teaching on a topic like, for instance, constitutional law, and there would be a whole section on that subject, and I say, man, how am I going to get the best book for the class or whatever, And I would go right to a particular book, and it will be exactly the book that sort of like encompasses all the other ones. And it will be exactly the right one. So this is very important that we tune in with the ancestors, because they will lead us and guide us certain things that we need to know at this time. So one day I just got an urge to go to this bookstore, Barnes & Noble, up in Yonkers. And when I went there, I seen 2 nuns. And it just hit my mind, because somebody had told, one of the elders said that Hakim Bey had got a lot of this information. Hakim Bey, who gave us a lot of this information, got it from a Catholic priest who had this stuff hid. So I thought about that when I seen them. I walked a little bit further, and there it was, the book I was looking for, a big, gigantic book, and on the top of the book it says fake. And it talks about all the fakes, artifacts that were being faked by these Europeans. And this is one excerpt from it, and it says the 19th century, the great age of faking. And this is right around the time of Horace Greeley. And it says the 19th century saw a fundamental shift in the relationship of Western culture to the past. And it says a man by the name of Horace Walpole, sounds almost familiar, Horace Greeley, Horace Walpole and his circle had discovered the romance of the past, even in objects surviving from the period of barbarism between the fall of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. Their discovery arriving on the eve of the Industrial Revolution, a period in which spread of affluence was combined with the increasing desire to escape from the present, because they know they didn't have no history at that present time, produced an explosion in collecting. From classical antiquities and old master paintings, the mania spread to encompass the chivalric glamour of the Middle Ages, the sculpture and decorative arts of the Renaissance, 18th century ceramics, 17th century metalwork, and even towards the end of the century. So in other words, at this time, they was dealing with all this that they have spaced out over hundreds of years, the Renaissance. They was dealing with all this at this time, and this is the time when they was concocting this whole thing, this whole false history. And it says the collecting mania created a paradise for dishonest dealers. As each new craze took a sudden imbalance between supply and demand, create the perfect opportunity for such people to peddle their fakes before a pool of expertise had been created. It says, craftsmen and some artists were themselves bemused and sometimes embittered by the fact that this old work had suddenly replaced them. So what they did to maintain a living, they started making fakes of so-called old stuff, because the stuff they was making contemporary, it wasn't selling. And they seen it was such a craze for so-called antiquities that they began faking these things. All right? So that just will make you understand sometime when you see, you know, they talk about this Greek and this Roman from 500 BC, all that's fictional. And what they did, Greek time is also they shifted time. They added 580 years to our calendar. According to our calendar, this is the year 1414. They added 580 years to throw you off. So things that you, for instance, let me get into this right here. This is another book. And see, there's certain things, you know, being up in New York, you know, I've seen Afrocentricity come, reach its peak, but it has not been able to answer the problems of our people. Brothers and sisters still out there killing each other off. They'll come up to you with a big Africa in the chest and kill you. They don't care. So it has not been able to meet or solve the problems of our people. And like New York was the center of Afrocentricity. I was out there with the books, I seen the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? But there were certain limiting factors within it. For one, Afrocentricity means, when you say Afrocentric or centered, that means you're just centering on Africa. And you're excluding a lot of other things. There were certain books, certain things that you wouldn't look into. For instance, I got this information from a book by a guy named Barry Feld. He's a Harvard professor. And he was talking about a lot about Leif Erikson and the Vikings and all that stuff like that. So you in Africa, you see someone on the Vikings, I don't know about that. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That's some white people. Those ones who they're calling Vikings and Danes were Moorish navigators. And in this book, that, you know, if you was of the mindset you wouldn't even look into, he drops ahead. He has a map right here, just to start with this map. And he has listed Libyans. This is North America. And this is a Harvard professor. Libyans, Norse, Greek, Cretans, Iberians, Jews, Celts, all that here in North America. And he says, he talks about the Iroquois Confederacy, for instance. He said the Iroquois are believed to have reached North America after most of these settlers have been made, possibly from South America around 1200 AD, passing up the Mississippi to drive an enclave into the Algonquin area. And the Iroquois Confederacy was a very important branch of our people because they had a model of a federal government that the Europeans patterned themselves after. George Washington Benjamin Franklin. There's a book called Indian Givers that talks about that. There's also another book called The Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall. All right, and I'm just going to quote some things that was in this book that relates to us. Just give me a moment to get to the particular pages that I want. He had a chapter in here called Arabs Before Islam. Now, this is very important because this shows you, you know, something struck me as strange also. I said, if the Moors just came about in 711 AD and invaded Spain and stuff like that, who were the people that the Romans were referred to as Moors? If the Romans and the Greeks were before Islam, Muhammad and Arabs and all that stuff like that, then how were the Greeks and Romans referring to a people contemporary with themselves as Moors? And I said, something's not clicking here, something's not right. Having this paradigm, how they shifted history, you see what I'm saying? You will look, and it seems to me, and more research, like I said, more research has to be done. The ones, when they were referring to Carthage, they were referring to the Moors. And Rome was those so-called Franciscans that we were fighting against. You see? And there's a space there of about 800 years. So I said, wait, how does that space 800 years get in there, right? Then I came across something else by another European scholar by the name of Emanuel Velikovsky. I'm sure some of you may have heard of Velikovsky. He was looked down upon by all his peers at that time. And now they're coming around to agree with what he's saying. He wrote a book called Ramses II and His Times. And in it, he dropped some major bombs. He proved how Ramses II and Nebuchadnezzar, who according to most Orthodox history is separated by about 800 years, how they were contemporary, how they were at the exact same time, and how when they refer to the Hittite Empire, the Hittites, and Syria and so on and so forth, they call it the forgotten or mysterious empire. That wasn't no forgotten mysterious. That was the Chaldean Empire. So there was a space, so somewhere along the line, 800 years was added. Now if you factor that into the equation, that will bring Carthage right up to 711 AD with the Moors. The 800-year difference. See, they were playing, the European was a master. What he was doing during this period of time is that he was grafting a history. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he was given 6,000 years to rule the earth, he didn't rule this earth for 6,000 years. He was given dominion or jurisdiction over 6,000 years worth of history. When you look in the books, all his history books start off with historical times as 4,000 BC, which up to now would be 6,000 years. When you look in the King James Version of the Bible, it starts off 4004 BC. So what he did was manipulate and graft and change up 6,000 years worth of history. The grafting process, when you take a nectarine orange, navel orange that don't have no seeds in it, it's not natural. It cannot perpetuate itself. There's no seed for you to plant. So what they have to do is take a branch, slice it diagonally, take a regular tree, a real orange tree with seeds and everything, cut one of its branches diagonally, and sew it on or tie it onto it, and it will grow and sustain itself off the roots of that original tree. This is the grafting process. This is what these Europeans did. They didn't have no history, just like that orange with no seeds. So they had to graft themselves onto already existing histories to give themselves a semblance of antiquity. They had no history. So they grafted themselves. The original people who inhabited the region that they refer to as Greek was us, dealing with the Mycenaean and Minoan Moors, who were navigators. The ones who inhabited the region that they refer to as Rome were the Etruscans, who were us. You see? So they had to concoct this false history for them to rise to be in the place of power where they're at right now. They ran into a problem. They found some tablets or whatever that had ancient Libyan or Numidian script, and they never could interpret these things. Then one day, they found out that Arabic was the key to it. But that threw them, and they said, wait, this is something 200-something BC. The Arabs didn't come till later on to 700. How was Arabic dealing with that? You see? And this was the key to unlocking these particular scripts, and so they can interpret it, which means that, now they try to say that there was Arabs in North Africa or these different places before Islam. No, there wasn't Arabs. These languages all part. We used many different languages. Hakim Bey said that Latin was one of our ancient languages. We always associate Latin with European people, or what they call the Indo-European languages. Those are our ancient languages, going into ancient Sanskrit and so on and so forth. We had different languages for different purposes. Latin was a legal, scientific language, and Arabic was a more poetic, dealing with more subtle, conveying more subtle ideas and concepts. The so-called adobe houses that you see in Mexico, the Pueblo Indian, you see the exact same thing in North Africa. The exact same type of houses constructed the exact same way. And it makes sense, because like I said, if you join those two parts together, what they call Libya, all that was all connected with America. It was all one thing. So naturally, they're going to have the same type of houses, the same type of climate, everything. And even the Dogon, the same type of thing, built in the side of the cliff, so on and so forth. The same thing. It's all one knowledge.
And the Dogon mythology and the entire thing is identical to the Hopi Indians. If you look at the pictures of the Hopi Indians and look at the Dogon, it's identical.
Same people, same technology.
Before I forget it, we found a Washita Street here at North Highland in Atlanta. A Washita Street, right off of North Highland.
You'll be surprised. This is, see, they would love for all you to go back to Africa. and give up the wealth and birthrights of this land here, they had to perpetuate that myth. And because they would know that once you realize who you are, you will claim your birthrights to this land right here that belonged to your ancestors. Imagine how mad your ancestors must be to be buried in these grounds and see you chasing after another land other than the land that you were born on. And you wonder why you kept so much hell and all so many things that happened to you. Because you run in the wrong direction. Not to say anything wrong with our brothers. Those are our brothers on the other side of the Atlantic. The Atlantic is like a big mirror, cosmic mirror. What's on one side is on the other side. Ain't no difference. The elders told us that the original now is right here, Old Man, Mississippi. The Missouri is the blue and the Ohio is the white now. And where the two come together, they got a city there to this day called Cairo. And the whole region over there, as a matter of fact, to this day, they call Little Egypt. The elders also said that in this hemisphere, you have 7 cities. The 7 churches which are mentioned in the book of Revelations. The 7 churches which are in Asia. And those 7 cities go from St. Louis up to Chicago, over to Detroit, down into Cleveland, Ohio, over to Pittsburgh, over to Philadelphia, and up into Boston. And if you connect the dots of those 7 cities, they give you the constellation of Big Dipper, the Great Bear, which was referred to as Moena, which is also a name that sometimes we call Moorish sisters, Moena. And this is what that particular and it was said by the elders, whoever rules those 7 cities rule the planet. Those are 7 key cities. And until this day, one of the cities still has the same name in the book, City Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is in what? Pennsylvania, which is the Keystone State. And when you look in the book of Revelations under Philadelphia, it says that you have the keys of David. That what you open if no man shut up, and that what you shut up no man openeth. And in Philadelphia, what do you see there? They call it the city of brotherly love because that's what we had the keys to our federal government, to the European Masons. And you see the Liberty Bell. Because if you take this and turn it inside out, you got the gong, you got the Liberty Bell. And you wonder why it's cracked. When your liberty was taken from you, that's why it's cracked. You see? The Liberty Bell, and they also refer to the feds as the Liberty Cap. When you see that soft cap that they refer to as the Liberty Cap that's red, that's the feds. And then you look at the coat of arms. The elders also told us that what they called here in this hemisphere the Spanish Empire was in reality the Moorish Empire. And then you look at the coat of arms for El Salvador. You see the fez on top of it. You look at the coat of arms for Haiti. The fez is on it. Look at the coat of arms for Cuba. The fez is on it. Don't take my word for it. Go see it for yourself. The fez is sitting right up on there with a halo around it, just like the all seeing eye on the dollar bill. The same thing, because this is the pyramid. The all seeing eye. This has a deep significance. You'll be surprised when you put this up on your head. Watch the responses that you get from Europeans, any people. I don't care where they come from. When we be standing there at 125th Street, all the brothers, we be out there, and all you see is feathers out there, Germans, they all come by, they look, they're like, man, the Moors, they awaken, they realizing who they are now. They come to, I don't care what country, Pakistan, the rulers of my country, they wear that. Africans come to me, only big chiefs can wear that in my country. This was a sign of nobility of the rulers of this planet. Continuing on, and see, the things we built in some of those 7 cities, the Old Man, Mississippi, coming down, this region right out here is known as ancient Egypt. Headquarters, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, the Memphite theology. Oh, that's right here. Oh, that's right here. The 5 Great Lakes. 5 lakes that were man-made by our ancestors that contain half of the world's fresh water supply. And that whole region over there is known as the breadbasket of the world. We fed the whole planet from there. And the elders also said that the original Mecca was Chicago, the center of all food, wheat, grain, and livestock distribution for the planet. And until this day, it's still that way. So we got to realize where we standing at right now and who we really are. When those Moors seen that we were falling from power, they took certain Europeans and initiated them and made them mystic Turks, chief protectors of the sacred shrines. They're not the owners. You had to be a master mason to be up in the federal government. And their duty was, when we seen that we were falling, we said, well, and they were coming to power, we said, let's initiate a group of them and put them there to protect our sacred shrine from the Catholics who would have destroyed everything up in here. And look at the Kennedy who was killed. What was he? A Catholic. Can't be no Catholic to be up in our sacred shrine dealing with religious mystery. We deal with science of mathematics from 0 to 9, zodiac and geometry, minus religious superstition. We don't get into that. We deal with universal science. They're waiting for you to come and claim what's rightfully yours. We sitting back, I'm a Negro, I'm a color, I'm a black, I'm African. When you come to them with that, they say, look, go back and study some more, come back when you're ready. Because this was given to me by Moors. The title of this says Moor. If you don't come correct, you're not getting nothing. And the FBI, I got a picture of Hoover. Look at that. Let me just get this picture out here. So you can just see, I'm getting a little bit into the other lecture here, but I just want you to see this. If I can find it. And here you see a picture. Just give me a second. There's so much information, you know. I'm just trying, I just wish people could see. I did about 15,000, 20,000 hours of research over the last 12 years. And I've seen things, I'm just trying to get it to the people so everybody else can see what I've seen. Because I've seen some stuff that you would be surprised. I can't find it right this second, but I will eventually show it to you. But it's a picture of J. Edgar Hoover with the feds on it. And you know, for many decades, for all intents and purposes, he was the federal government. And he said, well, then why was he coming down on the black people? The elders mentioned that there was a Moor up in Cleveland, I think, who was mixing this Moorish teachings with black nationalism. And I heard that the FBI stepped to the brother and said, listen, it was your fathers who put us in place to protect us when y'all fell from power. And we will kill anybody or deal with anybody who advocates overthrow. I don't care if they call them, if they're white, they're mafia, whatever. So they said, you better talk to that brother. See, we got to understand what we're dealing with here and who we really are. They know who when they see you with this on your head, believe me, they know that you know who you are. And they respect you properly for that. You'll be surprised at the response you get. And it's not even about that. It's about us uplifting ourselves and returning ourselves to the right place so we can get the planet back on track. Like I said, when the cats away, the mice will play. That's what's been going on. While we've been sleeping, this beast's been ruining our planet.
You know what is very important about it? I know at least everybody in this area here knows about the King Alpha Plan. And if you look at the King Alpha Plan, every organization on there, the
Black Muslims,
everybody but the Moors.
That's right. You won't see no Moors listed on that. You won't see no Moors listed on none of them organizations there. Because if you're a Moor, you know who you are. This is yours anyway. You just got to wake up and claim what's rightfully yours. And what I'm giving you now will give you the historical basis to substantiate your claim. This is ours. And what the Empress has done in Louisiana is this example. That's set the precedent what's going to happen, a lot more of what's going to happen as we begin to claim our land here in this hemisphere. Our brothers all up and down this hemisphere. We got to realize who we are. We're over 100 million strong. Over that, way over that amount in this hemisphere. If we realize who we are and wake up and do what we got to do on this planet, and we claim this, our brothers claim Africa or claim that over there, we can get this planet back on track the way it's supposed to be. But time is short, you know. A lot of things, they have a lot of things. See, he was given power. As long as you don't realize who you are as a Moor, and you call yourself black, Negro, all this other stuff, he has the right to do whatever he want to do to you. He could do anything to you. Anything. And this is what he's doing now. You see what's happening now. Just to diverge for a minute, you know, just so we can see what's taking place here and how critical we're at a very important junction in time right now. They closed down the military. Janet Reno, who's the Attorney General, said that they was going to use the closed down military bases as work camps. Now what has happened is that the prison system has replaced the factories in the white communities. And guess what? We are the raw materials of this factory. This is how all them white men that lost them jobs or whatever, the factories closed down, now they open up a prison. So now they're the correctional officers, and they got to make the uniforms and suits and all. Those are jobs. And we're the raw materials. We being set up. We like cattle being led to the slaughterhouse. Right up in New York, New Jersey, in that region up there, they forced everybody to get immunizations for measles. You couldn't attend college. When I walked into campus in the fall semester, they had a list of everybody's name who didn't get shots, saying you cannot come on here if you didn't get your shot. I said, what? Now they forced the people. Now all of a sudden there's a massive outbreak of measles on the college campuses. A state of emergency. Now, this seems a coincidence. You just did vaccinations, and now all of a sudden there's an outbreak? And then all the kids are talking about, I'm going to get my vaccination shot. Cattle being led to the slaughterhouse and don't realize it. You know, in terms of the gang warfare and all the different things that's going on. For instance, Clinton just recently said that they're going to pass a bill. They want to pass a bill giving the police the right to go up into public house without search the house with no warrant, nothing, because of what's happening in Chicago. Think about that for a minute. You're talking about police, and the thing about it, we are calling for the police state. They know they can't afford. We're saying, man, crime is too much in my neighborhood. Oh man, I'll give up the right of privacy for the right to live. You are calling for a police state, and they say, we'll oblige you. We'll give it to you. That's what you want. You know, so we gotta wake up. Things is happening. So many things is happening now. They passed so many laws. This, that, this, the state. We got to declare independence from U.S. state society and build ourselves. I'm going to get into that more towards the end. Let me just continue on. And this book just gets into all types of artifacts, hieroglyphics that was found. As a matter of fact, to show you how this is one world of our empire, the recent edition of Nexus magazine has an article in here that deals with, it says, Mystery Rock Carvings, Proof of Atlantis. And it shows you in Australia, they found hieroglyphics in Australia. Straight up hieroglyphics. Cartouches and all. We had a vast global network and the technology was advanced. Here's a picture of model airplanes that were found in Central America. Aerodynamically built. Look like modern airplanes. We was dealing with space flight, the whole nine. None of these things was new to us. I have a videotape here. The facing pyramids on Mars. And what they did, this is a lecture given inside the United Nations. There's a whole complex they found up there with numerous structures. When they measured the angles of those and the measurements of that complex up there, they gave key formulas of physics and geometry. And they matched up with the megalithic structures we built down here, the pyramids, Stonehenge, so on and so forth, showing this was all one technology we was dealing with. Ain't nothing new under the sun. We was dealing with all these things that we think is new now. We always had knowledge of these things. Let me just read you this article here. Oh, and also to show you something else, showing you the discrepancy in regards to chronology. There's a whole section of books from the Bible, whatever that they call Apocrypha, books that was left out from the Bible. One of the books is a book called the Book of Baruch. And you begin to see why they left these books, because it contradicts a lot of what they're saying. This book so-called deals with Nebuchadnezzar and the so-called Babylonian captivity. But you're going to find out that when they talk about Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian captivity of the children of Israel, the children of Yaqub, it was really dealing with the period of time when the Moorish nation had enslaved the Europeans. We enslaved them before they enslaved us. Now I know, hold up. That's right. We had them enslaved on a global level for 360 years. This is why they was able to enslave us, because according to the divine law of retribution, what goes around, come around. And this is why the Moorish Empire fell. And you said, wait, they declared their independence from Britain. You think they declared their independence in 1776? When they declared their independence from the Moorish nation. Now, when I first heard, I said, oh, that's crazy. What are you talking about, the Moorish nation? It was the white people from England. I found a book called Diplomatic Relations with the Barbary Powers from 1776 up. And in it, it says that in 1776, Britain, France, Germany, Denmark, Italy, all these countries were paying tribute to Morocco. They were paying tribute to the Moors. You don't pay tribute unless you're a conquered nation. They were paying tribute to the Moors. And we were using them as mercenary forces. This thing is deep. Now, dealing with the Babylonian captivity of the Jews, and this is a time when they learned a lot, the children of Israel, this time when they learned a lot of what they learned. Now, I'm distinguishing between the 12 tribes of Israel, which we are, and the children of Israel, or Yaqub, whose name was changed to Israel after he did his experimentation.
Well, I don't know, maybe 300 years of genocide, that not good enough reason for you, champ?
Oh, you part Mohawk now?
Yes, indeed. Kimasabi, one of the lost tribes of Israel.
Yeah, you tracked.
And they were enslaved by the Moroccan Babylonian Empire, who were Moors. And to show you how they fooled around with time, it says here, as will be shown, now this is the book of Baruch, it says, as will be shown, the sequel tragic events of 586 BC, which herald the exile, constitute a thin historic drapery which invests the yet greater tragedy of the Jewish race in AD 70. It is now generally accepted by recent critics that Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar represent the persons of Vespasian and Titus, which is around 70 AD. So here, they're talking about something that happened, they say 586 BC, then with Nebuchadnezzar. Then here they're saying it's really dealing with Vespasian and Titus. And then if you take it further, you find it's really dealing with something else. So you see the games that was being played here with chronology and geography. And see, we can't accept the chronology and geography they have given us and just be content with just saying it was black people. No, let's question the whole geography and chronology they have given us. Here's another article. This was taken from a book called The Science of the Mexican Pyramids. Now, I think Brother Emiola has the one dealing with the Egyptian pyramids. He should try and also get the one with the Mexican pyramids. There was an article in it, and it shows all these Moors whose head was decapitated and put on poles and put on sticks. And check out what it says. It says, designed for the detection and punishment of heretics, the Inquisition was used as a giant pork barrel for the enrichment of crown, church, and inquisitors, while cheerfully eliminating dangerous radicals. Now listen to who these dangerous radicals are. Those who have been taught medicine, geography, rhetoric, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and astronomy by Moorish philosophers. Moorish philosophers. I'm just going to wait till you put it in tape in. And this decapitation was taking place in Mexico. This ain't in Spain. This is in Mexico. Dates. It doesn't have a date on this particular page here, but I'm sure it's around 1600, somewhere around that time. Somewhere around that time, the time of the conquistadors and so on and so forth. And it says that the ones who the Inquisition was conferred, dangerous radicals were considered were the ones who was teaching mathematics, geography, rhetoric, all these things at that time. These are the ones who they were decapitating. It says the Inquisition was also an excuse to rid the planet of such organized mystics as Illuminati, Pantheists, Manichaeans, and Albigensians. So Moors, all these are represented all in one breath as one thing. This Inquisition was for all these so-called people. This is one example of the connection between them. And it says, all the accused were presumed guilty before trial. Now these are so-called Christians. All the guilty were presumed guilty before there was even a trial. Sounds familiar, sounds like what's happening to us now. A trial which took place in absolute secrecy. Sound like the backroom police stations. The defendant was afforded no counsel. Accuser and judge were the same person. The names of witnesses against the defendant were withheld from him. Women, children, and slaves could not be used as witnesses by the defendant, but could be used by the prosecution, who could obtain them by torture. And it says minor penalties could be commuted, paid off, bribery, all that. We know the corruption already. And then it says, now check this, it says, the victim's goods were subject to confiscation and were incorporated into the royal and church domains. We talk about reparations. And this is Europeans saying where our wealth went to. It says that the victim's goods, subject to confiscation, we're talking about land, gold, everything, subject to confiscation were incorporated into the royal crown and the church domains. The inquisitors who paid no taxes and gave no account of confiscation effectively took their share. As a deterrent to possible opposition in New Spain, Mexico, 34 Negroes, including 4 women, were hanged and decapitated in Mexico City. So as a deterrent against the Moors, Illuminati, all the stuff like this, as a deterrent, they hanged 30 Negroes and nobody else. So what is that telling you? That was us, the Moors, the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, who was teaching geography and all this. You see, you got to read between the lines, because they'll tell you by so many words. They can't outright tell you, because they're under open obligation not to. They can't tell you who you are outright. They could never tell you that you were Moors and that you had a Moorish empire just prior to their 1776 Declaration of Independence. They can't tell you that. Their system is based on you not knowing that, and they maintain themselves. Here's a picture, and we think over there, they switch geography around. We think over there is England. The elders told us that the original England is over here in Virginia, Jamestown, King James, Jamestown, Virginia, and that what they over there call England now, we used to call Albion or Albion. That hit me. I said, what are you talking about? Then I came across a book, and it says Sir Francis Drake claimed the land of his. They're talking about California. It says that Drake claimed the land in the name of his queen Elizabeth I. He called it Nova Albion. Nova meaning new, and Albion being an old name from England, for England. So it is by their own scholars that the original name of that place was Albion or Albine because of the white cliffs of Dover. Albine meaning white, those white cliffs of Dover. So all this stuff is starting to click and make sense, and the stuff that just seems so far-fetched on one hand, upon doing the research, starts to make a lot more sense. Here, I'm just going to show some pictures here, because a lot of the children, a lot of the Europeans, famous Europeans you see in history or whatever, were actually the mulatto mixed breed children of Moorish nobles and rulers and white women who were in their harems. See, this is where the bleaching out took place. And people who you see in early history here in America, like John Hanson, who were really Moors, were passing as if they were white. What happened was that white women were sold on a global level. They were sold on a global level to Moorish harems all over the world. And the mulatto mixed breed children that you seen came through them so-called this is where you get the so-called Turks, Arabs, Japanese, Indians. These are the mixed children of us on a global scale. Now, people say, what do you mean we had the Europeans enslaved and we were selling white women on a global scale? There's a lesson here. This is one of the lessons from the packet. This is the fourth one of Big Ben Bay. And in it, like what they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Here's a picture taken from J. Rogers' book, and here you see a Moor with a fez on selling a white woman into slavery. A Moor with a fez on. This is one of the reasons why the Moors fell, because we did it to our own sometime also. Here you see a harem scene with white women in a Moorish harem. All right? So, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Now, look at some of these people here. This right here is King Philip II, Philip III, son of King Philip II. And you could just tell by the lips and everything. He looked like one of our Spanish brothers or whatever. And here is a picture of King Philip II. These various rulers up in Europe. See, originally they were all so-called blackamoors, what they call blackamours, and eventually through the bleaching out process, it became what's known as tawny Moors, or lighter-skinned Moors. That's where you get this whole thing about tawny Moors. Here's Alexander Farnese, Duke of Parma, the great Spanish general. All mulatto Moors. And they were more refined than the other savage Europeans because they grew up in the courts of the Moors. So they learned how to do like us, and how to behave amongst us. And here's even a picture of Sir Francis Drake, so-called, bad guy. You can see too. He was a mulatto Moor, if you look carefully. I know brothers, they look just like him. I have a picture here also of King John, the so-called signer of the Magna Carta. And here you see, he looked just like a brother with two brothers standing in the back of him. King John of England, who so-called signed the Magna Carta. This thing is so deep. I mean, so much history has been left out. Here's a picture of Vesalius, one of the great scientists dealing with anatomy and everything. And you can see, I mean, he has an afro. He has an actual afro. So, I mean, there's no doubt he got an actual afro in this picture. And he was the founder. All these great people we see in Europe, most of these were the sons of Moorish rulers and European women. And then I'm going to get into the other class you hear about, the Bilderberg group and what's known as the black nobility. And I said, wait, Rothschild, why are Europeans, so-called white Europeans, call themselves black nobility? Where did that come from? And then you get into J. Rogers' book, Sex and Race, and you look at the coat of arms of the nobility up in Europe, Germany, France. All these are Moors. Let me just, to prove that they were Moors, and I'm using the specific word Moors. I'm not saying black, I'm saying they were Moors. Dealing with nationality, it says Negroes in the coat of arms of noble family. And you know, with J. Rogers, you just got to get past the word Negro when you read his books. He got heavy information in his books. You just got to get overlooked that little word Negro. And here's the noble families of, these are the French, Italian, Spanish, and Polish noble families. And look at the names. Morelensia, Moret, Moretti, Moreau, Moresque, Moors. All Moors, ruling all throughout Europe. These are the ones from Dutch and Belgian families. And look at the names again. Moreau, Morreal, Moor, straight up Moor, M-O-O-R, straight up. Moors ruling Europe. You know, so there's a whole history. There's a whole aspect of our history. I want to read this part now, too, coming from a book. The desk is starting to get messy now, but that's supposed to happen. This is the heavy book here, Ancient and Modern Britain. And if you can't get your hands a hold of this, there's 2 volumes. And through almost every page of these 2 volumes, all he talks about is Moors, how we were ruling up in Britain, Scotland, Ireland, all those places we were ruling up into. Those so-called marauding bands of gypsies, Egypties. Some of them are the deposed Moorish nobility, that when they were deposed from power, they became so-called marauding bands of gypsies. This is why you see a gypsy sometime in Europe, dark-skinned, dirt poor with a title of nobility. Where did you get this title of nobility? They were the former rulers who were deposed from power. Now in this book, he mentions in here, and because, see, there's a whole part of our history, we don't get into all this. What about all this up here? All up into here. All this. We was working this up here. All this up in here. That was all us. All our navigators was all up in here. We just look at this. All of this down here. All that. It's all this. In this book he mentions here, you heard about the Druids, so-called builders of Stonehenge. As you told me, I said, wait, England, all right, Stonehenge is in England, Stonehenge is in England, and England is ruled by white people. England is for white people. There's white people there. So they built it? And were they the ancient Druids themselves? No. Those are Moorish priests. You know, high science.
And also there's a book out on Druid religion is dealing with Isis and Osiris.
Exactly.
You know,
and it'll make sense because when you look up in England, they got places in England called Little Egypt. Actually called Egypt. Which the word gypsies come from. Gypsies. And then he says in here, so he says, this is a white person now, David McRitchie is a white person now. So then the Druids and Druidesses, because they were priestesses also, who had colleges in an island near the coast of Brittany, who professed a knowledge of the future, who the men at least were figured as bearded like goats, with a goatee, just like you see the dog on, and who worshipped the gods, were dark-skinned, curly-haired Iberians of the tribes of Silures and Damani. This seems a fair inference. In other words, he's outright telling you who these people are. They were dark-skinned with curly hair. All right? I'm going to read a couple of things here just to give you an idea. This thing is just action-packed. This is too much. This is too much in this book. These books. He drops too much about this. Definition of Moor. Any Latin dictionary, any old one at least, will tell you that Moorish is a Moor, a blacker Moor, or a tawny Moor. And Shakespeare uses the word Moor as a synonym for Negro. And then he goes on in here and he mentions how, remember I said Moors as navigators. And you will find the word Moor always associated with water. He says here, therefore, if the word Moor and its variations were primarily the sea, and Latin or Spanish, the mare or whatever, means sea or whatever, mare, more, all the same thing, primarily the sea, and gave its name to a nation of sea rovers, or if the case were reversed, and the sea became associated with the name of a great seafaring race,